Hello everybody and welcome to today's session of our MAP virtual days. We originally started already 2021 and today we want to have a new topic about our MAP.commander C600, new hidden functions in our control unit, and Georg, our specialist, you know him already from foreign webinars, will support me today and prepare some special features out of it. My name is Stefan. I am with MAP since 10 years now. I started as a service technician and now I have the pleasure to support our customer as an area sales manager. And therefore, from the beginning, I was quite a lot in touch with our control unit. And for me, it's important that our customer perfectly knows all the benefits of our control unit and they really also use their features. Yeah. Before we start, some general topics. If you're joining the webinar the first time, please double-click on your screen so you have full screen mode. And if you have questions during our webinar, please write those questions into the chat function. And at the end of the webinar, we will answer your questions. Georg, please, which points we have today?
Yeah, first of all, this time it's not so much with video clips, pre-recorded video clips like we had last time. I'm doing this live on my virtual control here on my notebook. And for the beginning, I want to go with the temperature configuration on the configuration page. So not the standard temperature page, but let's say global temperature configuration from the machine side. For this, we go to my virtual machine and we switch over to configuration. And here we find as the second from the top on the left side, the temperatures subpage. And for today's session, we're gonna ignore the first couple of functions here at the top and start immediately with the tolerance limit level 2. And as you can see here, it says currently not available. And when we open the drop-down, we only can choose between not available and available. Obviously, at first sight, with no real difference when only just activating. To see the result, we need to switch over to the standard temperature page. And for example, this is here now injection units 1 strip intake temperature zone. We go in there and then we see a second tolerance here. So currently it's predefined tolerance 1 with ±4 degrees centigrade. And the machine alarm, and tolerance 2 is ±7 degrees centigrade with no cycle start. So this offers me the possibility, if we, for example, if we go to the, second to the next, injection chamber here, there's only just one tolerance because I have not yet activated it. So if we remember on the configuration page, we globally made this function available. And then, furthermore, we need to activate it for each and every single zone where we want to have this function and want to use this function. Okay. So it's not only just by activating that I have to configure all of these tolerance zones, tolerance limits for the temperature zones, but I can choose on my own for which temperature zones I want to have this second tolerance.
Okay, so what was the idea behind and what's the customer benefit to have such a second tolerance zone?
So first of all, let's stick with that first example with the strip intake. No, my bad. I want to switch over to the tools and let's go for one of the heating plates. So restore the example from before, 4 and 7 degrees. And so now it's alike and it makes a little bit more sense because it's dedicated for the tool and not for the strip intake. Because that makes more sense for understanding the purpose. we have 4 degrees as the narrow tolerance. So here that means if we see on the specific temperature zone a deviation of more than plus minus 4 degrees, we have the machine alarm as the alarm action. And this only just gives us the red light, the main alarm. So visual alarm, if configured, you can also have the acoustic alarm together with that. But the operator can simply just acknowledge the alarm and keep going producing. So it has no direct influence. It does not interrupt the production as such. On the other hand, we have tolerance number 2, the wider one, but the more critical one. So with plus minus 7 degrees, we already have, that's already quite a number of temperature deviation. And also, therefore, we have the more strict alarm action with no cycle start. So this really means no, if there is a deviation of more than 7 degrees, stop, because otherwise we only just produce scrap.
Okay, understood. So for the tolerance 1 at the end, maybe during one shot something could happen, but the machine has the possibility that next time could be a normal shot and keeps producing. If the problem still existing, the same alarm will come again. And if the temperature tolerance, let's say, will widen up, then maybe a critical alarm will come up if it reached the second tolerance level.
Yeah. Just to give an idea, perhaps, unfortunately, there is a door for truck delivery in the closer area of the machine, and in the night shift, door opens and someone delivers or picks up products, and therefore there's just some cold air cooling down the specific area, and that only lasts for, I don't know, 1-2 shots, and then it's gone. So it's not that the machine immediately stops with a violation of the tolerance, but it makes the operator aware, and only if it either sticks over or under the critical tolerance, only in that case it will be stopped for preventing waste production.
So for fully automated processes, it can actively, let's say, give the conveyor belt, for example, a signal, please change the direction, feed the parts into a waste box. Or, of course, if it's manual or semi-automatic production, the operator will get an alarm. Be careful, this part have a problem because of missing temperature.
Exactly.
Great. As we are currently on the temperature pages, I noticed that you quite a nice, let's say, put up a defined, let's say, structure. For example, injection unit, cold runner block, and so on. Could you tell me something about this? I think it's a new feature with the new control unit.
Right. So depending on how many temperature zones you have for your machine, it can really make sense that you differentiate or split up your zones in groups that make logic sense to you or to your employees. So in this case here on my virtual machine, I have gone for the option to have one page or sub-page for the injection unit, one page for the tool and all the temperature zones there, and a third page for the cold runner temperature zones. And for configuring that, we simply just go back to the previous page of the temperature configuration page, and here you see number of temperature pages. You define up to 4 different pages you can name and define. And then you simply just insert your personal name for the specific pages, like I did here with injection unit tool and cold runner. And to assign those pages to the to assign the zones to the according pages, we hit the button Organization of Temperature Zones, and then it's working with the drag and drop procedure like you're pretty much familiar with from your smartphone, I'd say. So just to the left or right to switch those zones back and forth. And yeah, when you're happy with your configuration, just leave it. And normally, if you have really done a proper change, then you'll get prompted with the question, you have changed it, do you want to keep it? Yes, and that's it.
Okay, great. Georg, what's the function of the second set value?
Yeah, we have here, the function is called, already with the abbreviation ADD dot, so that means additional limits for the set values. If we make those available, so the principle is pretty much again the same. First, on the global temperature configuration page, you simply just make the function available. And then we switch over to the general page for the heating zones and temperature zones again. And if we go in there now, we find in the third level the upper input limit and the lower input limit. So by standard, when you, just like here, when you open or when you make that function available and go there, you see the lower input limit is always the minimum as it is, let's say, mechanically for the machine as such. And the upper input limit is also accordingly the maximum. And now it's up to you to define. We have set here 180 degrees centigrade as the set temperature for the specific zone in the tool. And we can now say the lower input limit should be, let's say, 175, and the upper one, 185. So once this is done, no matter if it's outside here at the second level or also in the overview, once I click the button for changing the set value, you'll see the minimum limit and the maximum limit have changed to the settings of 175 and 185. So now you're only allowed to adapt. That's probably the better expression used here. Now you're only allowed to adapt the temperature within these borders.
You know, such features are, and if you're a long-term MAPLAN customer, you know that we always try to implement new features coming from customer requests, or also what we are noticing outside of the customer. And I think Georg and me, we were quite often at the customer for training and so on. And funny stories are coming up, like the operator is saying, "Oh, last week I produced 10 or let's say 100 parts more because I just raised the temperature on the mold by 10 degrees. And in the back, the production manager was crying, of course. So with this function, you are, of course, able to prevent such a wrong operation. And for me, it's also very important that you create user levels, not just this limit function, but also create user levels. Give the, let's say, give the operator the limits, or let's say the rights he just needs. Create the user page, and you really avoid that there is wrong operating and wrong settings created on the machine. Of course, you can also see in the history who changed this data, and it's really important to have stable quality in production.
Right, because you mentioned the user page. Let's have a quick look, or the customer page. Let's have a quick look what this would look like. For example, I've defined here 2 customer pages. So again, you have the choice to create up to 4 different customer pages. And we have here as the first page for the one for the operators. And we see heating plate, clamp side left. Yeah, of course, I can now open it and change the value. But the point here is, even if I log off now for a moment, so no one is logged in, no permissions at all, and still I have the possibility to change the temperature settings here. So that is now where the function of the limits really comes in handy. You can put the, let's say, relevant temperature zones on the customer page, even for the operators with lowest permissions, let's say, accessible and also adaptable. So if they'd go to the temperature page, they could not change any set values. But on the customer page, they have the permission, and therefore they can adapt the temperature within the predefined borders that we have just configured.
Which, of course, sometimes is necessary depending on
Exactly.
Conditions around the machine. They could change, so they have to adapt, of course, but in behalf of a tolerance, yeah?
Exactly, yeah. That's the point here.
I think another nice feature, but not well known, is the possibility to lower the temperature on the injection unit during the vulcanization time.
Yes, I'm gonna log in quickly again. Right on the temperature. Yeah, here. It's called second temperature lower or raise, or in some, let's say, previous software versions of the C6 control, it was simply just called the setback mode. How to exactly configure that would be a little bit too much for today's webinar. I want to simply just give you an idea what this function does and from the principle how it works. So, as the name already implies, you can, let's think of a huge product you're producing on the machine. So you have a cure time of, let's say, even an hour or longer. During that time, you can lower the temperature of the, let's say, injection unit, because you don't need the injection unit to be at, let's say, 70, 80 degrees Celsius at for the whole time. So therefore, you can lower the temperature here, and yeah.
And I think the very big benefit is that about the energy consumption. Nowadays, everything revolves with energy efficiency, and energy costs increasing. Everybody knows that, and I think you really should have a look on your process where I can save money, where I can reduce energy costs, and this I think is a very nice feature. Of course, if it only makes sense if you have long vulcanization times, but then it really makes sense, like you stop the motor. If there is no movement, you can also lower the temperature to save energy.
Right. So, of course, included there is, again, that you start heating up the injection unit at a specific time soon enough so that it already will have the temperature, the needed temperature again before starting plasticizing or even the next cycle. If you're really interested in that feature, please contact either my colleagues or me directly. We will be glad to help you. But just like I said, it's quite powerful and therefore, unfortunately, a little bit complex. And this would simply just be too much for today's webinar.
Great. What's our next topic? I think machine efficiency.
Right. Machine efficiency, exactly. Machine performance, as the button says here. But yes, the meaning or the purpose is pretty much the same. And only thing is, I also want to ignore here the first line for today's session, and want you to focus on define waste. Because if we click that button, you see various choices for, let's say, tell the machine to automatically take into consideration when defining waste, depending on, let's say, specific conditions. So if we stick with the temperature tolerance, for example, that we have configured previously, you see waste definition for individual temperature zones on the page temperatures. And we have here two checkboxes, tolerance 1 and tolerance 2. So also if you have activated the second tolerance limit, you can also define here, let's say, keep in mind the tolerance 1 was the narrow one, so the not so critical, and tolerance 2 was the critical one. So we can combine this here by saying or by checking the box for tolerance 2. And this now means if there has been a shot with a violation of the tolerance 2, we remember the machine will stop at the end of the cycle, but still the parts would be demolded one or the other way, and but the machine then automatically counts this and defines this as waste. And you have also mentioned before the possibility of conveyor belts or
separation flap.
thank you, right? So if the machine is equipped with something like this, let's stick with a conveyor belt, as in my opinion it's the most easiest to get an imagination. We have the violation of tolerance 2. Machine now knows this shot should be counted as waste. So on the one hand, in the statistics, this will be counted as waste. And on the other side, when it comes to the automatic demolding, it lets the parts fall down on the conveyor belt. But let's say in this case now, it's not going to the front side of the machine, to the box with the good parts, but to the back side of the machine where you have your, let's say, waste box. So you can also have this kind of automation to have an automatic separation of good parts and waste parts. And all that combined here with the function of the automatic waste definition.
And efficiency, because it's automatic separation. You don't need to wait on the operator separating the parts manually. This can be done just fully automatic.
Exactly. Right, and as we are already here, machine performance, we also have, or we have here the possibility to define, let's say, personal or your own stop reasons. So I've already pre-configured here 2 stop reasons. The one is maintenance and the other one is out of material. And as you can see, if I click the input field, I can insert whatever text I like. So that's, I don't have to choose from predefined reasons. I can create my own. So let's say machine fault. Simply just something is wrong with the machine as a reason. The tricky thing is we define here the reasons at the page for the machine performance. The use of these reasons is made. The text system is reloading once you insert a customer specific name. Right, we have switched to product data, and here we find at the very bottom right side the button interruption of production. And once I press this button, you see machine operator, whoever is logged in will automatically be assigned here. And in the second line, we see the reason for production stop. And now let's say I ran out of material. I hit the button apply. And we see the top left and right corner of the headline of the control turn red. So this is a visual signal for the operator or whoever is in front of the control at the machine. Wait a second, the machine or the production has been interrupted. So you now work on the problem, or in this case here, you simply just wait for a new batch of material being delivered to the machine. And then you can turn it off again and continue with your production.
Okay, great. We move to the next point, which is on my agenda, the export function.
Right.
What possibilities we have on a MAPLAN machine as a standard, let's say?
Because let's stick for a moment here on the product data page. If we take a look at the statistics now, because that is what we can also not only just but also export. We see here for example, the machine stop reasons. So maintenance just 1 second, out of material. Almost half a minute. I was out of material. And of course, we also offer the possibility to export those data. And for this, we go to the process control page and find here on the right bottom side the button Export and Archives. We have the possibility to automatically export or to do a manual export. Automatic export only just works towards the network. I define at which time this should happen. I'd say normally, usually once per day. And then I can also choose the language for the export. So whatever language is installed on the machine, you can select for the export language. So that's also quite useful when, for example, there is, let's say, information exchange between various production sites within one company. So they also can exchange the exported data in the local language, for example.
Yeah.
And we see for what we can export, we have set value log file, alarm log file, trend data, statistics of production, what we just configured. And all these, for all these functions, you can choose between daily and cyclic. So my suggestion is all these log files, it's more than enough to do that daily. Because, let's say...
you have the history anyway.
Yes, right.
And you can export.
And the only real thing where you want to go for the other option is the process graphics. Here it's really, if you want to keep all of that data, it's really necessary to go with cyclic, because there's only just a limited storage available in the control for all these data. And all these log files, we don't really have to think about that. We're speaking here of at least weeks, no matter how short your cycle time is. But for the process graphics, that's the only exported data which is not just a single point value, but where you really export the graph. And therefore, much bigger files that are created by exporting those process graphics, or even by storing them on the control. And therefore, the storage for the graphics is limited on the control, with only just the last 10 curves are stored. So if you'd export those graphics daily, you would only just have the last 10 shots exported exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's nice to see, but you're missing everything in between.
Yeah.
So for the process graphics, do the export cyclic, and for all the log files, daily is sufficient enough.
Yeah, but I think why we are bringing up this topic today, that exporting of process-relevant parameters is most important, independent if you have an internal MES system or you use such parameters for target values in the company or for, let's say, production control. I think if your customer complains about the part and you have all this data stored, you can prove to him that exactly during this shot, because you will know which shot this waste part was produced, you can prove to him that everything was done according to the set values and the injection process was done correctly. So I think this is a big argument for the export function.
Right. Point simply just is the machine itself during production and while it's running, it creates lots of information and data. And the simple but important fact is collect and store all these data. You have the possibility, do it just in case whenever you need it in the future. If you never use it, okay, we're not speaking here of gigabyte of data. We're speaking here of, I don't know, a couple of kilobyte per file, per export. So it's really, yeah, storage is, or local storage on the network can't be an issue here. But the problem is only just once you have a problem and want to look something up and you haven't done the export, bad luck.
Yeah, yeah. And we provide you a simple tool in form of an Excel file to open up this data to have a first look. Yeah, this is
the ideal idea, let's say, behind all that would, of course, be that you export the data to your server, and then either you do post-processing on your own, or at least you store all the data on your server. And what we provide to our customers is, like you said, an Excel file containing macros that gives you the possibility to have a quick overview, call up the log files, the graphics, and all that. And it also, say, gives you yeah, it makes it more comfortable to
read.
view and
Yeah.
read
Yeah.
exactly. So you get a predefined design of injection curve, or also the trend data. You can select and even zoom and all that. But yes, it's just meant as a quick tool for a quick overview. And if you're using an MES system, then you do the post-processing of the data anyway, and also the graphical post-processing of all that data anyways.
Great. Last point or last topic of our today's webinar is the connectivity to a Maplan machine, or let's say from one country to a Maplan machine in another country. Not only that we support you as a customer, which is nowadays of course standard, but also you internally can support your production sites. What possibilities do we have?
We're not, just like you mentioned, we're not talking here now about the possibility for Maplan to access your machine and provide support to yours. This is now really what's the benefit for the customers if they connect the machine to their own network. So let's have a look at the virtual machine once more. Usually on the configuration page, you see here the software update, and if you have sufficient permissions, you can go there. And now, unfortunately, on my virtual machine, you don't see it here because it's lacking the hardware, and therefore it's not showing the buttons. But here at the bottom side, you would normally see the possibility for calling for help at Maplan. But once that you have connected your machine to the network, the big benefit is that from within your own site, your application engineers, your engineers have the possibility to access the machine as long as they're within the same network. So you call up or insert the address of the machine, you call up a copy, you'd need to say a copy of the control interface, so you're not interfering with the operator on the machine. He doesn't even really see or know that someone else is logged in, because perhaps you only just want to check for what's the current production status, how many parts are there still to go, or you want to check for some specific settings, are they where they should be, or things like that. So you're simply just checking on some specific data locally on the machine. But also, for example, let's think of a scenario the other way around. The operator calls the engineer and says something is going wrong, or the shift leader is making that call. Something is going wrong. Please have a look at the settings. What can we do to solve that issue? Mm-hmm. And so they have their engineer on the line. Engineer connects to the machine, looks through the process settings, and then says, "Yeah, do this, do that," or "Wait a second, even I can do that for you." So if you have the permissions, you can also remotely change some values on the control.
Mm, yeah, and I think everybody knows that problems occur mostly after 6 p.m. or in the night shift. So production manager is already at home, and the operator needs support. So instead of going there to the company again, or let's say long talks on the phone, production manager just can connect via the VPN function to the machine, log in with his user level. We talked about it before. So user level means he logs in with his rights and his possibilities. It's an independent session, so even with his language, the operator is not influenced. He has still his page, his language, and his user level functions. And the production manager give quick support, directly on the screen, or of course tells the operator, okay, you need to do this, you need to change these values. And most of the topics, as we know, can be solved online 50% quicker, and downtimes will reduce drastically. Or as Georg said before, process engineers nowadays, it's quite common that the process engineer of a big group is, for example, in Europe and production site is in Mexico. So he can connect to the machine in Mexico and give the local team support for optimization of the process. I think a very big and important feature.
Right, and there was one keyword I noticed in your speech right now, VPN. So again, you need to, like I said previously, within the same site, you need to be in the same network. So with connecting remotely to the machine, let's say from home office even, you need to have the possibility to connect to your company network with a VPN tunnel. So you need to, let's say, fake for the machine that you are part of the same network and you're within the same network. And then this works. And not only just from your home office to the production site, but also, like you mentioned, this works worldwide under the condition that the various sites within one enterprise are connected with VPN functionalities. Right.
Great. I think nowadays, if it comes to the connection of the machine, if I don't want to put or have the possibility to connect with a cable, I think we also have a possibility to connect with Wi-Fi, right? We have a module.
So let's say the number one option to go for is using network cable, simply just because of stability. Yeah, exactly. Stability, speed, and whatsoever. But we do see that for some customers, this might be a problem, especially if they have not fully equipped their production sites with the possibility to hook on to the machine with a network cable. But on the other side, it's, I would say, most common that even in production halls and in shop floors that you have Wi-Fi access points. If you think perhaps even only just for Wi-Fi telephones. So if that infrastructure is already in your production, you can make use of that as well. So we do have an optional Wi-Fi module we can equip the machine with, and the antenna then simply just is mounted to the electrical cabinet, and you can establish the connection with Wi-Fi.
Good. I think one last point to this topic, I mean, every industrial engineer knows that in bigger groups there is a big requirement on the IT and regulations, you know. I think there is also, let's say in worst case, if you don't have the possibility to connecting to your company network, could you explain what possibilities do you have if I really don't want to put the machine in my network, in the company network?
Yeah, if your machine is not hooked up to the company network at all. Of course, I have to admit, you're lacking all these functionalities of company internal remote support, automatic export, and so on and so forth. But the least that we can offer to the customers is if you don't want to connect your machine to the network and you're encountering a problem, an issue with the machine, you still have the possibility, you know, these LTE cubes, for example, even for private use, doesn't matter. Most of them have a network interface for a network cable. Just plug it in there, plug it in on the machine, and at least the machine now has internet connection. And with the invisible shown button here on my virtual control, you can establish the connection to the Phoenix Contact Cloud, and the MAPLAN service technicians have the possibility and chance then to connect to your machine and provide you as good as possible with our excellent support.
Exactly.
So we can have a look at your machine, check for the process settings and whatsoever, and guide you and offer you support.
Good, and I think in this case it's really all according to your IT regulation. It's really you need to decide, okay, I want to put now the machine in the network, and we're able to support you, or you can export something.
Right, because if I may, you by just connecting the machine with an LTE cube, it's not that the machine by itself starts browsing the internet.
Yeah.
It's only just it has the possibility, but under normal conditions, there is no reason for the machine to access the internet somehow. Only when you press the button, once again, there is this VPN tunnel established to the Phoenix Contact Cloud. So that is the only situation where the machine from itself would access the internet, to say.
Mm-hmm. Georg, thank you very much for highlighting these features. I think it was very important to put out some older features, some newer features. I hope it was interesting. As mentioned at the beginning, we prepared, or let's say corrected, your questions, and I would like to answer, of course, some of them. Thank you very much. So we have two questions, but they are both related to export function.
Okay.
First question, what about manual export?
All right. I think most simple is to simply just go to the virtual machine again and show it directly. So we go to process control, export, and we're here now at the subpage for the manual export. And we see we can choose the section, what to export. So either going by date or simply just saying last shift or last production. So whatever suits best. And target, in this case for the manual, not only just towards a network drive, but also possible to plug in a flash drive, USB, and do the export to the flash drive. Setting the language the same as for the automatic, and the set value log files, all the log files, trend data, and all the rest of the choices is pretty much the same. Only just that here we don't go for daily or cyclic. We only just say yes or no, and that's it. Configure however you like. Press the start button, and that's it.
Great. Second question is related to automatic export. Where do we set the network folder for the automatic export?
Okay. Yeah. As we can see here in the subfolder for the automatic export, target is fixed to network. So there is no other possibility to switch for the operator or for whoever's in front of the control. So automatic export only just works towards a network folder, and the network folder can be set in configuration, and you go to system control, and you find here at the bottom right the symbol with two machines and kind of a network connection. And when we press this, we find on the next subfolder named network drives the possibility to define network drives for specifically for mode data, for export, my documents, and so on. And here in export, for example, I already have my typical network drive configured. So we need to insert the IP address, server name, the sharing name, so that's the name of the network folder itself, domain name, username, and password. And here, please, my suggestion from experience, ask your IT to create an own user for all the MAPlan machines. They can use the same user. That doesn't matter. Just one user, username, and one password that is set to never expire. That's just the point, because usually, with the strictness of IT department and regulations, they normally define that the password is only valid for, let's say, 1 year, and then you have to choose a new one. And if you do the same for the machines, well, you can do, but please also keep that in mind, because otherwise you will see on a regular basis, let's say yearly, you will see the notification, wait, stop, I couldn't connect to the network folder.
Exactly,
and therefore have one user with never expiring password, define all that, and press the button with the 2 arrows, so refreshing, and usually you would see this gray field here next to connection turning green when the connection has been established, and that's it.
Excellent. Georg, thanks a lot. Maybe if further questions coming up in the next days when you're trying out those features, don't hesitate to contact us, or maybe book a training through Maplan. Georg is always loves to visit you and make training on site. Otherwise, thanks a lot for your attention. I hope it was interesting to you. You enjoyed and took some information with you out of the webinar.